Welcome to What's Your Story. Every week, I bring you a guest who's authentic and genuine, who's going to share insights and practical information that you can put to use in your business or your personal life today. Today's no different. Do you have a dream? Seriously, do you have something that you want to make happen in the world? Well, today we're going to speak to someone who works with individuals that have big ideas and dreams, and she helps them bring them forth. My guest today is Colleen. Colleen Judys. She works with individuals who have these big ideas, and she has a very unique way of doing it. So that's why I have her on the show. Colleen, welcome to What's Your Story?
Wonderful to be here, Charlie. I'm really excited.
So we have an audience out there that's wondering, what do you do? So could we start that way?
Sure, absolutely. So this is a show about stories, and my work is always about stories as well. So maybe telling a client story might be a good way to share what I do.
I think that's the right way to go.
Awesome. Okay.
Time's yours.
All right. So I'll share a little bit about one of my clients that I've worked with. We've been working together on various different goals of hers for actually a couple of years now. And I do work with people for different periods of time, but this is someone that has a lot of amazing things that she's doing. So when this client, her name is Judy, when she came to me, she had been a recording artist for 30 years, a very successful recording artist. She also is a radio personality for the last 20 years on a New York radio station. And she said, I love what I do, but there's just this dream I've always had. I think about it, but I never really do anything about it. You know, I've always wanted to do a one-woman show. She'd seen one-woman shows, one-man shows, thought they were absolutely amazing, and really wanted to do her own, telling her story. She has a very inspirational story, but she was terrified. She thought, one, I'm so busy, which she is. Where am I going to find the time to do this? I've got such a packed schedule. She said to herself, you know, this is different than what I've done before. This is not in line. What if it's too different? What if I can't find the resources to make this happen?
What happens if I fail?
And that was the biggest. What if it's a catastrophic failure? It's the terror that, what if I do make it happen, I get the resources together, and it's not what I wanted it to be.
It would damage
right?
the other things she does, the reputation she's built.
Exactly. So there was a lot of fear wrapped up in there.
Sounds familiar.
And we all, no matter what we're working on, have that little inner, I call it an inner antagonist, you know, the sort of negative voice that is in your head kind of telling you why you can't do it and why it's not the right time. And she had this voice in her head. And she had other goals as well. Some of those goals was she had considered doing some life coaching, actually getting a certification, becoming a life coach, and also one day doing a TED Talk. And so we said, what are the priorities? We've got a lot of goals here. Where do we begin? We need to begin with something and jump in. The one-woman show is the priority. And we worked on that inner antagonist and what that antagonist was saying. We looked at her schedule. We found where is there time that you can pull from, that you can make yourself a priority, make your goals a priority. And she is an amazingly hard worker, and she dove in and rescripted her story, rescripted that negative voice in her head. Every time it would come in and try to throw her back down again, we worked on changing what she was saying to herself and changing that internal conversation. A year later, for her 50th birthday, she did her first opening night for her one-woman show, and in a matter of a few months, she did 28 sold-out shows.
28, from 0 to 28.
28 sold-out shows. So and I got to go to opening night, and I was crying. It was amazing. It was amazing.
You were like Pygmalion.
Totally.
You helped create this thing. Now, you've written a book about this process.
Yeah.
Could you share with the audience?
Absolutely. I brought a copy with me.
For me.
So it's called Rescript the Story You're Telling Yourself, the 8 practices to quiet your inner antagonist, amplify your inner advocate, and author a limitless life.
So how do you do this? You brought a slide that outlines the steps.
Yes, I did.
So if you would bring that slide up, thank you.
That's the one. So I call this rescripting, and it's really about how we take each of the, I was working with clients for many years and finding that there seemed to be themes with the negative conversations we have in our head. And what I did was I took those themes, and being someone who loves acronyms and also loves alliteration, I have a little alliteration obsession, I was like, I love this idea of Rescript, right? And I love the idea of stories because my work has been so based in that. And I created an acronym that's basically practices for how we quiet this nasty voice in our head and find the voice within us that's often a lot quieter, that is the one that's your advocate, your ride or die, the one that's gonna push you, empower you. How do you amplify that voice and change the way that you talk to yourself so that you can go after what you want?
So which of these would apply to Judy?
Well, in the book, I wrote, in each chapter, I share a story of people that I've worked with, and Judy's story is shared in the Engage chapter, Engage Your Growth Goals, although we did work on probably a lot of these different areas where we work together, but this engaging your goals and really, that thing inside of us that says, I'm scared, what if it doesn't work out? No, I'll just run away. I'll just evade these goals and I'll just back off. And I think so many of us do that to ourselves. We have things we want to do and we say, there's a million different reasons why I shouldn't do this, and we just say, forget it.
Yeah. It's in the work that I do with people, that's very, very common. There used to be an advertisement, a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Right.
And we could just substitute the word dream.
Yep.
Because the fulfillment of dreams creates opportunity for other people.
Right.
Just not
Very
ourselves.
true.
So, can you describe types of people that really benefit from the work you do? Who are they?
Yeah. So
Did you bring a slide for that?
I did. There it is.
Okay, great.
And so, these are examples of people that I work with, and I, sort of say perfectionists, people pleasers, warriors, catastrophizers, but I group them into what I call self-blamers, right? So to me, there are people who look within and say, I have the answers, and hence when I think I'm not doing well, I think I'm failing and I'm bad, and I criticize myself and I beat myself up, right? I'd call these people self-blamers. But the great thing in how I feel about working with self-blamers is that they're already looking within for the answers, so they're often going to look within to find solutions. If they think that they're responsible for what's not going right, they're also going to be able to do the work and be empowered to do the work to do what will help them move in the direction they want to go in.
What about the other side of the equation, those that are blaming others?
Yes. So there's the flip side. The other group of people I call other blamers, whereas we're looking at the outside world as, it's my boss's fault, it's my mother's fault, it's my spouse's fault, it's the world's fault, it's everybody's fault. And I want to say, I think it's really important to say that there's always times in life where cards get stacked against us. It's not to say I think that some people are more fortunate than others. Some people come into this life with more resources than others do. Some people experience more trauma in their life than others do. So it's not to say that nothing in the world and other people don't impact us. That's crazy. Of course they do. But it's that how important it is when you've got situations in life that may be stacked against you, how we have to be able to pull from what is important within us and pull from that self-advocacy, not only for yourself, but because if you can be your own advocate, you're more likely to be a force of good in the world and change the things that have upset you about life and other things. I think it's not just about you, it's how you then muster that to take your gifts and give them to the world.
Yeah, we always worry about how other people see us, perceive us, and we have to break through that. And it seems to me that you do this. Now, you haven't been doing this your whole life, but
No.
Can you give us a little sense of when you pivoted in your career to really focus on this?
Yeah, so I started my business as a part-time venture in 2008, and it became a full-time venture in 2010. What I did prior to that was I worked in higher education for 13 years, doing advising, counseling, career counseling with college students. And I love that work. And there was a time in 2008 where I had been writing resumes for people, and I know you're in this line of work. I've been writing resumes for people for many, many years as like a hobby. You know, some people knit, some people ski. I was writing resumes as a hobby. So I turned this into a business in 2008. My son was born in 2009. I missed doing this work. 2010, I said, I'm gonna leave this full-time job and make my passion a full-time reality. And that gave me more time with my son. And it allowed me to do what I love and work with people in the community doing what I love to do.
Thank you for sharing that. And we're going to have to take a break. We need to hear from our sponsors. When we come back, we'll pick up where we left off because I know there's more you want to share.
Absolutely, thank you.
A few words from our sponsors. Stay there. We'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you.
But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life. If they were human, we would call them wise. They would be the ones with tales to tell and stories to write. The ones dealt a bad hand who responded with courage. Do not pity a shelter dog. Adopt one.
Say we've got grit, and we'll take it as a compliment. Because it's our uncommon drive, our spark within, that brings us together and sets us apart. We are temple made. And when others take shortcuts, when others take breaks, when others take the easy way, we take charge.
Add us on social media to watch bloopers, behind-the-scenes footage, previews, and more.
I work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. So when I'm off the clock, I gotta get stuff done. So when I need a snack, I need something healthy, tasty, and easy to eat. Like wonderful pistachios without the shells. They're protein-powered, delicious, and great on the go. And that's perfect for me. Thanks, Liz. A woman without a lot of time.
Whether you're a gourmet cook,
That's amazing.
Welcome back to What's Your Story? My guest today is Colleen Judys, and could you hold that book up again?
Sure.
She is the author of Rescript, a fascinating book about people that have dreams and are often held back from fulfilling them, and she shows them how to break through to that next level so that the world can benefit from someone else's dream. You were talking about how you got into this line of work, and the word that comes to my mind is a calling.
Yeah.
So, am I right?
Absolutely.
So share that a little bit. So like, why do you do this? Sounds like this is your why, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right.
Okay.
You know, the idea of why do we do what we do? And I ask clients this question, whether it's individuals or groups I'm working with, why do you do what you do? And for me, doing this work is something I've felt truly called to do. Like, it's almost like the opportunities come to you and you have to engage them, and the doors open, and you know they're ones that you're meant to walk through. So I think for me, The why or the purpose is feeling like I naturally see the good in other people. It's easier for me to see the good in people than the opposite of that. So the ability to work with individuals or teams to help them see their strengths, to help them really savor their accomplishments and acknowledge their accomplishments, to help them determine what they love to do, what they're passionate about, what engages them, what they lose track of time doing because it's that enjoyable, and their purpose, you know, their mission, you know, what is it that brings you a sense of meaning, you know, when you're doing this work, whatever it is, or working on this project, that you feel like you're part of something bigger, that you're doing what you're meant to do, what you're here for. And to be able to help people find that and see that in themselves, and then to give that to the world, and to help them not only see the good in themselves, but see the good in their lives, what's around them, and the good in others, and the good in life overall.
So can you share with us the kind of outcomes
Sure.
that come from people working with you? You brought a slide.
Yes.
Would you bring up that slide? Coaching outcome. Would
Yeah.
you, now there's too many to talk about. but
Sure.
maybe one or two, could you share a story with us?
Absolutely, absolutely. So these are all things that I work towards with my clients, and it's different depending on the person, but overall, I think of gratitude and strengths being a big piece of important outcomes that are a part of the work that I do. So, so for instance, strengths. How important it is for us to, I think a lot of us, we've got a lot going on. We live on autopilot.
Right.
We may not even know what we're great at, right? And to really dig and think, what do I do really well? What do people come to me for? What am I like the guru of? What am I just really great at? I think also that we're taught not to focus on that that's like bragging, it's not a good thing, don't be egotistical, right? So working with clients to be intentional about discovering your strengths and using them to do important things in the world. I think of a group I worked with where we focus specifically on identifying your strengths and using each of those strengths every day to serve other people, right? And someone shared a story that I worked with, and one of his top strengths was kindness, and it was winter time, and he saw there was a big snowstorm, and there was a woman trying to dig out her car, and he said, you know what, okay, I'm gonna do my homework assignment for Dr. George's, and I'm gonna use my kindness strength to help this person dig out her car. And in an hour, people saw him, and another person comes in and starts helping, and another person. It was the most amazing story when he shared this with me, how an hour later, there was a parking lot full of people helping other people. But I think that's what it's all about. How when we use what we're great at to serve and to do good in the world, it inspires other people.
Well, I would imagine that he got validation that this strength called kindness, which doesn't at first blush have the oomph that
Right.
others' strengths may
Right.
have, like analytical or statistical, whatever. All of a sudden he sees this people coming together for a common cause. Chances are he'll do something kind for another group, and it will
Yeah.
spread.
Yeah. And he shared that he kept this practice up, which is pretty cool.
There's a lot of talk about value proposition, that if your clients, I imagine, are investing in themselves with you.
Right.
So they're going through their heads saying, well, what's going to be my return on investment? What's my value?
Right.
So what is that for you? What's the value proposition of this work?
I feel like for me, the most important thing, when we set our goals, if we can get to the point where we figured out this is what I want to do, okay, these are the areas of my life that I have these particular goals for this area of my life and this area of my life, that if we get to the place where we're able to make a to-do list and find the time and put it in your calendar and get started and get moving, a lot of times we hear people say, yeah, I did really good for 2 weeks and then I fell off. And for me, the value proposition is when I work with people, it's not just about let's goal set, let's figure out what you want and goal set and get it in your calendar and do it and celebrate. That's part of it. But the biggest underlying piece is that rescripting, that every time you've got that inner antagonist voice in your head that comes in and says, oh, this is too hard. Oh, you don't got time for this. Oh, you messed up yesterday, so you can't get back on the treadmill tomorrow. Or, you know, this job search is, you know, re-careering is too difficult at 55. You know, I can't do this. When that antagonist comes in and tries to stop you, that's a value proposition, is that it's teaching clients to be their own advocates instead of shut themselves down. So anytime when I'm not working with them anymore, they've retrained their mind to be an advocate instead of an antagonist.
I remember Pogo. It was a cartoon strip many, many years ago. And there was one that said, we've met the enemy and they is us. Yeah. So what role do you play with your client? Just not one, I'm sure there's multiple.
Yeah.
And you brought a slide that
yeah.
sort of summarizes it. Would you bring up the next slide, please? Thank you. There it is. So walk us through this graphic and explain it to us.
Yeah. You know, I think that as a coach, you play a lot of roles with your clients, but you know, the first thing is you're co-strategizing. I'm working with my clients to be a co-strategizer. You know, we're figuring out, okay, how satisfied am I with every aspect of my life, and what do I do? A question I often ask my clients is, if you rated your relationships as a 5 out of 10, what's one thing that you could do immediately that would take you from a 5 to a 6? And so we're co-strategizing, we're brainstorming together, and then we're jumping into action. So the next piece is being an accountability partner. We've got homework. I'm sending that homework to my clients in an email so we remember exactly what it is. And then it's, okay, here we are, we're talking again. How did it go? You know, how did it go with, you know, this thing that you said you're going to do for your finances, or this thing that we said we're going to work on for relationships or career? How did it go? And we're tweaking it together, so we're still strategizing, but we're also making sure that we say, all right, well, you said you were going to do this 3 times a week, so what happened? You did it 0. And so maybe we need to tweak it or figure out, is there something happening in here? Is there a conversation that's shutting us down?
My sense is there could be relapses. They could slip.
Yeah.
And you have to get them back up.
Yeah, so that's the accountability piece, and we all can use that sometimes. And the other piece is being the external advocate. I talked about being our own internal advocate, but having a partner, right, with you that is cheering you on, that is always reminding you of what you're great at, why you can do this, why you've overcome struggles before, reminding you of how you've had challenges and you've used that wisdom to move through things before, and constantly being an external advocate and a champion, really just celebrating and helping my clients celebrate and savor. Not just, oh yeah, that's nice, and move on. No, let's sit in it. Let's really sit in it and celebrate that you did this, you rocked this. That's important.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the writing of the book. How long did it take you to write the book?
So
my sense that was a dream at some point in time. Yes. That is now a reality. So
yeah.
You've gone through that process of manifesting the dream.
Yes. And it's probably one of the most important dreams that I've gotten to accomplish in my own life. And people ask that question, how long? The easy answer is 16 years. The other answer is there was a lot of not writing during those 16 years, a lot less actual writing happening. Right. But it's, you know, it's actually getting out of your own way. So I'm writing a book about self-talk. And I have chapters in here. In the perfectionism chapter, I talk about the fact of how I had to get out of my own perfectionistic way to make this book get published. Otherwise, it would have just stayed in here. It never would have been good enough, and there would have been a million reasons why not to do it. But 16 years in total from the first time I sat down to write, and the bulk of the work happened in the summer of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you saw the finish line and you pushed toward the finish line.
Yeah.
People that are in marathons, when they can see the finish line, it gives them an extra oomph to get across that finish line.
Yeah.
There's a story about Pablo Picasso. He had we'll call it a customer, who was complaining about a portrait he did for her. And she said to him indignantly, he said, "It only took you 5 minutes." He said, "No, ma'am, it took me 25 years."
Right.
So again, there's all this experience you're bringing to the table. And if you had written it sooner, it wouldn't be as good as it is today.
Yeah.
So are you working on rewrite number 12 already?
You know, it's funny. This book is not what it started out. In 2003, when I first sat down to write this book, it was a whole different book. And when I started again in 2016, or 15, 16, 17, 18, different book. And today, oh my God, I have moments where I was like, oh my God, why didn't I include that? Why did I forget that? How could I have forgotten that? And I think that's common, right? We look back on experiences and there's always something you can add.
Yep.
But I look at it like this. That's the next book,
There
which
we
is
go.
already coming. It's trying to come out. So
And
next
there's
year.
many people that await your second book. But let them get the first book first.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, we ran out of time.
Yeah.
I thought you did great explaining it. I'm sure the audience benefited from it. But this is your time to look into the camera and say whatever you want to the audience. Go ahead.
Thank you. So for anyone out there that's, got, whether it's career goals or other goals in your life, and you feel like you need a co-strategizer, an accountability partner, an external advocate, one of the things I do with my clients is offer a free 20-minute consultation. It's a phone call where we dig in and dive in.
Well, thank you for doing that.
And so
Thank you.
if anyone is interested, on my website, it's www.colleengeorges.com. You can sign up for a free 20-minute intro session, as well as I have a free Rescript Your Story workbook that's available on there. Also for, I work with groups, I work with organizations, I do a lot of public speaking and training, so any organizations that are looking for leadership development, staff development, I do a lot of that work, and I'd love to come to your organization and buy the book. This is my passion project and my baby, and it means everything to me, and I hope that, one, that you buy the book, and two, that you love it, and that it makes a difference in your life.
And she did a TED Talk, so look on the internet and find her TED Talk, and I think you'll see how alive she gets in front of an audience. Listen, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
And again, every week I have a guest who's authentic and genuine, who's going to provide insights, practical information that you can put to use in your professional life and your personal life today. So go out, define your dream, start working on it. See you again next week. What's your story? Be well.